Welcome to I Read This Book with Chris. With me, Chris. Today we'll be discussing the classic, The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. The copy I read is a special movie edition. It's 1977, originally published in 1896. The Island of Dr. Moreau. Moreau. I always want to say Monroe, but it's not Monroe, it's Moreau. And while discussing this book, I shall be drinking some Ethiopian goji coffee. I probably pronounced that wrong, but made a pour over. Cheers. So originally published in 1896, is a little more on the horror side than I normally read. Pretty dark, monstrosities, that sort of thing. It's not too scary. It's a little dark. I'd put it, I don't know, my mind kept going to The Lord of the Flies. It's a very similar vibe. This was published earlier, obviously, and the only thing that's really similar is commentary or the idea of civilization in an island being a small civilization. And what exactly any of that means. Plot. Build up for the story is a little weird in order to build up so you can get to the island. It starts off with a little introduction saying, hey, this is a story that I've got from this other guy. This is what he says happened. And then once you get to him, he goes, and he was on a ship, and the ship, not shipwrecked, but was sinking in a storm. He managed to escape with him and 3 other men. Other people escaped on other ships. Him and 3 men escaped on a dinghy. One of the guys tried to kill the other one. They both wrestled off, fought each other, sank into the ocean, so he was by himself. Dinghy. He then got rescued by a ship. The captain of the ship was a drunk, and the man who saved him was getting dropped off at the island with Dr. Moreau. Because he was slightly rude to the captain, our protagonist, Edward Pendrick, was kicked off the ship. And the captain says, hey, you can either go with your friend here, or I can leave you adrift in this dinghy. Whatever the case, I'm not dealing with you anymore. So he gets kicked off in the dinghy, and Dr. Moreau and Montgomery, he gets kicked off the ship, and Dr. Moreau and Montgomery go, and instead of leaving him adrift in his dinghy, which he can't control, go in their smaller boats, come up and grab him, and bring him to the island. On the island, he learns that they're both scientists, biologists, and he is weirded out by their helpers that they have, which appear to be, at first appear to be hairy African men, and he later realizes are monkeys that have been turned into men. First, he thinks that Dr. Moreau's art, all of these creatures, there you go. Dr. Moreau has turned into animals, and he runs away, finds these partial men, partial animals in a society in a ravine. Dr. Moreau and Montgomery finally catch up to him. They say, hey, we are not monsters. We do not turn men into animals. What we're trying to do is turn animals into men. And he realizes that after he shows, Dr. Moreau shows the puma that he's currently working on trying to turn into a human, everything sort of clicks and makes sense. And he sees all the creatures of an island. Some of them are leopards that get turned into men. There's a Saint Bernard. There are some swine. There was some that he mixed that were part bear, part bull. And he basically vivisected, cut them open while they are alive, and did surgeries, changing their bodies so they would walk upright on 2 legs. He would change their vocal cords so they could talk. He would change their brains to reconfigure their brains, therefore they could go and understand and speak English. And he taught them how to speak English on the island for over a decade, working on this project of theirs. And Pendrick had just stumbled across it after being shipwrecked. After a few months of Pendrick being there, The puma escapes its vivisection, kills Dr. Moreau, Dr. Moreau kills it, and all of a sudden everything falls apart. Montgomery is a drunk, he runs out. Some of his friends that are these animal beasts, he gets them drinking. They all get killed by other of these beasts, and Pendrick is left by himself on this island. And slowly over time, over the next 10 months, he watches as these beasts turned into animals turned slowly again into beasts. At which point, a ship, in fact, one of the ships that carried these animals and that had saved Pendrick when he had gone adrift, washes aboard with several dead men. He takes the ship, loads it up with some water, pushes out into sea, at which point he is rescued and brought back to civilization. Little horror thing. Some of the themes that I found interesting in this book were the concepts of religion and religion's place in society, and how exactly we are. What are we? What are humans? Clear that up a little bit. So these creatures, animals turned men, are experiments of Dr. Moreau. They live in a little village in some caves. They make themselves little lean-tos and little things to live in. And they have some laws that were given to them by Dr. Moreau. There's one of the creatures there is the sayer of the law, and he memorizes all of these and makes sure whenever anyone new comes that they are given this law. And part of it is Dr. Moreau has a place of a deity. I am the bringer of life. I've turned you into who you are. You get away. If you get hurt, I can help you. If you break the laws, I will find you and I'll bring you back into the house of pain. At which point, when Dr. Moreau dies, Pendrick, in order to save himself, informs them that that Moreau is not gone. He is up there. He is watching you, and everything that he promised will come to pass. And things as they slowly revert back into their animal ways, society falls apart. The power of his religious sayings over them slowly dwindles. And it seems to be a very pessimistic view of life, of why we are here, of how we got here. You could view it either as God is Dr. Moreau, who experiments on life through evolution, and creatures are created. They're only civilized by being together and by thinking about God, and then once that thought goes away, we revert to our animalistic natures, which could be commentary about war. This is written in 1896, so it could be spilling out the history of the next century, where civilization, even though we had wars, they're nothing like the wars that happened. The World War I and World War II, followed by the Cold War, and all of that inhumanity pushed into that one bit, especially considering the atheism that spread throughout the it could be a rant against God and why are we here and why is our life here. We are just all experiments. It could also be a rant against evolution, that there was no actual purpose. Had Moreau any intelligible object, I could have sympathized at least a little with him. I'm not so squeamish about pain as that. I could have forgiven him a little, even had his motive been hate. But here was so irresponsible, so utterly careless. His curiosity, his mind, aimless investigations drove him on, and the things were thrown out to live a year or so, to struggle and blunder and suffer, and at last to die painfully. They were wretched in themselves. The old animal hate moved them to trouble one another, and the law held them back, a brief hot struggle and a decisive end to their natural animosities. Either God created us without any clear end, and here we are struggling against our nature in order to have short lives and to die. Or these experiments were just done by nature themselves, and there was no purpose for it because there is no creator behind it, and Dr. Moreau is just evolution himself. What separates man and beast. Nothing. I mean, men can be made into men in given time. They weren't supermen-like. They couldn't think a whole lot for themselves, but they could talk and communicate. And then once taken away, it all fell apart. I mean, these are all, no matter who you think Dr. Moreau is, whether Dr. Moreau is God or Dr. Moreau is the heartless universe creating us through evolution, it's pretty depressing. And then there is a prediction at the end, which may just be thoughts about the book of Revelation, is about the end times. And so this is Prendrick as he is talking to his loyal friend, who is the Saint Bernard dogman. "They are mad, they are fools," said the dogman. "Even now they talk together beyond there. They say, 'The master is dead. The other with the whip is dead. The other who walked into the sea is as we are. We have no master, no whips, no house of pain anymore. There is an end. We love the law, we will keep it, but there is no pain, no master, no whips forever again.' So they say, but I know, master, I know." I felt in the darkness and patted the dogman's head. "It is well," I said again. "Presently you will slay them all," said the dogman. "Presently," I answered, "I will slay them all. After certain days and certain things have come to pass, every one of them, save those you spare, every one of them shall be slain." "What the master wishes to kill, the master kills," said the dogman with certain satisfaction in his voice. "And that their sins may grow," I said. "Let them live in their folly until their time is ripe. Let them not know that I am the master. The master's will is sweet," said the dogman, with the ready tact of his canine blood. Which is, certainly there are allusions to the Bible, to Christ coming, to what some of the things he said, and then Christ coming again. Others, but lost in here are any of what the Island of Dr. Moreau is lacking is redemption. He's thrown onto an island. Experiments happen. The creator of these experiments dies. And as the beings who were created, these experiments slowly fall apart. There is no chance for redemption or salvation for any of them. They slowly go and revert back to their animalistic ways. The sloth men climbs back into the trees. The pig men will go and eat the fruit and dig around for roots, and all of the violent ones, the predators, end up dying their own death caused by attacking Prendrick or the other men on the island. This is a world without redemption, without salvation, without any of that. Pretty scary. It's a good book, I would say. It's got the feel of these old science fiction books that I like. There are probably a few too many layers in the beginning to get him to the point where he is. You read modern science fiction and it just, okay, here we are. We're in the 27th century, living on Mars, or we're in the year 12,000 whatever, and we're on some other planet in a different galaxy, and this is the world you're in. In the earlier science fiction, they got to connect it. So this is the story I've gotten from newspaper clippings, or this is the story that I got that were from notes taken from some guy that I met, and he got there because he was on a ship that got shipwrecked, that then got picked up, and then he got kicked off again in order to live on this island, and only survived because it here. How did we hear about this story? And you have to connect all the links. It's a good book. I'd pick it up. It's a nice quick read. Yeah.